Let's go to Parliament for live detail this afternoon. Well, it's still morning. Ibrahim Alassan is our parliamentary affairs correspondent. Ibrahim, good morning to you.
Good morning, Lily.
What's the latest from Parliament? I see a few barricades behind you. What's happening?
Well, so this is the main entrance to the Chamber of Parliament. And in fact, today
is the only entrance. And that's because all the other entrances have been closed. Ostensibly to ensure that each and every member of Parliament who is accessing the chamber uses this particular entrance. The reason is that, as you are aware, the last time the House was in session, there were a number of decisions handed down by the Speaker following the chaos that engulfed the sitting of the Appointments Committee. That included the suspension of 4 members of Parliament. The indication given from the minority side is that the suspended members of Parliament on the side of the NPP will show up today, and then they will partake in the business in the plenary. Now, this action you are seeing, it will ensure that if you are suspended from the sittings of Parliament, as Speaker said, you remain suspended. And it is ostensibly to ensure that the 3 do not get access to the chamber. That's not the only thing that's happening relative to today's sitting. The minority caucus is equally engaged in a caucus meeting.
Okay.
Before then, I saw the minority leader, Alexander Kwame Afenyomarkin, in the company of the Clerk of Parliament, exit from the Speaker's chamber. If that is anything to go by, then I'm sure we can conclude that that memo that was sent to the Speaker by Alexander Kwame Afenyomarkin, the minority leader, might have gotten the attention of the Speaker, and that there are some engagements ahead of today's sitting. Now, aside that, we are aware that the committee, the special committee tasked to investigate the chaos that engulfed the appointment committee will sit tomorrow. But we are aware that minority members of the committee have decided not to partake in the exercise. Nonetheless, per what we gather, tomorrow the public hearing will take place. One main matter that is to be attended to today in the chamber is the report, the final reports of the appointments committee, where more than 10 nominees who were vetted, including those who were vetted on the very last day, will have their reports taken. The indication given by the chairman of the committee at the last sitting of the appointment committee was that the 10 or so individuals who were vetted on the very last day have all been recommended for approval by consensus. When we put that to Alexander Kwame Afenyomarkin, he referred to the report, the draft report, which was on his table, and came to the conclusion that that is not accurate, and that indeed there are some disagreements relative to the nomination of some of the ministerial nominees. And that disagreement will play out today in the chamber or at the plenary. I'm sure the worst will be that those individuals whom I suspect will likely be Samuel Nate George, Minister Designate for Communications, and Samuel Okujeto Ablakwa, Minister Designate for Foreign Affairs, will have their nominations be subjected to voting by secret ballot, after which they will find out what their fate is, as to whether they will be approved by majority decision through the voting, or their nominations will have to be stood down because they will be rejected by Parliament, the plenary. And so, Lily, as I mentioned, you can see behind me that security here is quite very tight to ensure that nothing goes wrong. This is what you see in the chamber. But if you go to outside the chamber, you will realize that, again, there's heavy reinforcement. Heavy reinforcement of police presence, and other security personnel, individuals from the marshal's office who have been brought here to ensure that at least security is top notch. In fact, before you enter the main entrance to Parliament, the number of checks you go through, the number of police presence, to be specific, is unusual. We've reported from Parliament for a while. These are security arrangements you see when the president is coming to deliver the State of the Nation address. But given the extraordinary circumstances that the House finds itself in, the chaos that engulfed the last sitting of the appointment committee, those security measures have been put in place. Lily.
But Ivy, you mentioned that this has been put in place so that some of the members of parliament who've been suspended, I mean the 4, will not be able to access the chamber. But have you cited them around the precincts of parliament, anywhere around parliament?
Well, I've seen one, and that's Jerry Ahmed, but of course not in the chamber. That's outside the precinct. Let's engage briefly. Esquire Vincent Sefu, a member of parliament for Old Tafo. Council, do you still stand by your argument that the Speaker erred by law and by anything that works in his decision to suspend 3 of your colleagues and 1 from the other side?
Can you quote any constitutional provision that supports what the Right Honorable Speaker did? Can you quote to me or to the people of Ghana any statutory provision that supports what he did? I do not think that we are in a banana state. This is country Ghana, practicing democratic principles, making sure that everything that we do in this country does not have anything to do with autocracy. We practice constitutional supremacy. We do not practice a speakership supremacy. We do not practice a judiciary supremacy. Neither are we practicing an executive supremacy, but a constitutional supremacy, where power belongs to the people. And we act on behalf of the people, for the people. And so no one should be misguided in any power that has been given to him to use those powers capriciously. You cannot approbate and reprobate. The constitutional provision that gives me an authority to go through an election, have myself win an election, and come to the floor of parliament to debate on behalf of my people, is the same constitution that gives power to the Speaker of Parliament by going through an election and having himself win an election. It is the same constitution, Article 19 of the 1992 Constitution, that says that you should give a fair hearing to everyone. Fair hearing inherent in that Article 19 is natural justice. Listen to the other side. It is a basic principle in law that you cannot do away with.
Can't they be given that opportunity by the committee that has been set up, the special committee?
And I'm saying that, yes, the special committee has a role to play or has a mandate to play. But of course, you cannot jump the gun. You cannot jump the gun because you should listen to the people. You should listen to them first. Even at the beginning of the creation of this world, when God knew that Adam had indeed disobeyed him, he still went ahead to ask Adam, "Hey, Adam, what have you done?" God gave him a hearing to listen to Adam first before he condemned him. So you cannot condemn anyone, irrespective of how you see, irrespective of the evidence that is before you. You have to listen to everyone. It is a cardinal principle in law that you listen to the other side before condemnation.
Now, you operate with the standing orders derived from the details of the Constitution. The standing orders also talk about the fact that in any situation where provisions have not been made for it, the Speaker has a discretion. Can't that stand in this case?
With the greatest of respect, ask any lawyer in this country. Any lawyer will take you to Article 11 of the 1992 Constitution. And when I was at the law school, everybody knows this is basic. That Article 11 talks about the sources of law. The standing orders that you are quoting to me is a subservient law to the Constitution. Subservient to the extent that it emanated or had its power from the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. So you cannot, under any circumstance, use a subservient law to topple a constitutional provision. That is unpardonable. That cannot be the case. I have made this analogy to you to portray that even if, in the event that what the Speaker of Parliament is basing on to have suspended the 4 MPs is right, assuming without admitting, I am suggesting to you that when the two provisions, the constitutional provision and the provision of a standing order, comes face to face, it cannot topple a constitutional provision.
Will you encourage your colleagues, the 4, to show up in the chamber today?
Well, I am not in your mind. As far as I'm concerned, whatever the Speaker of Parliament did and said is illegal. It shouldn't have happened. It is unpardonable. It is shameful. It is a worrisome situation for our democracy. It is a bad precedent that has been set, and any other speaker in future can do worse if you allow this to stand. I do not think that this should stand.
You were a subject matter committee member when it came to the vetting of Samuel Okuta Ablakwa. The chairman indicated that in your absence, his nomination had been recommended for approval by consensus. Does that stand?
The Speaker of Parliament himself, on the floor of Parliament, said that the select committee, the selection committee, should meet to reconstitute the appointment committee. And it takes effect immediately. Emphasis mine. It takes effect immediately. That means the appointment committee that was sitting at the time did not have any authority to be able to go ahead with what was happening there. It was on that basis that the minority decided to stage a walkout, because the Speaker of Parliament has already directed that we should reconstitute the appointment committee. So what is our basis for being there? And so I do not see why the chairman of the committee allowed the process to go on to the extent that even ministers that were not billed for vetting that day were allowed to be vetted that day. Now it became Putogum, Shegum, Putogum, Shegum. You come 2 minutes, then you go, 2 minutes, then you go, without allowing the representatives of the people to do the kind of work that they are supposed to be doing, to ensure that we ask cogent and relevant questions, to as it were bring out the best in them, so that the Ghanaian people will understand and know that the people who are going to be our primus inter pares, people who are going to be our leaders, can actually lead and represent us and make decisions on our behalf in a way that we want it.
Are you going to vote on Ablakwa? Are you going to vote on Ablakwa?
Well, it's my decision, as a subject matter committee, that this is not, or it should not be an approval by consensus. It should not be. If I am asked, I'm not going to vote for him because I believe that he has a lot to answer. There are credibility issues, which he himself has not been able to, as it were, substantiate. And there are principle issues of principle. You remember, I asked him a very simple question. You have indicated that His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo engaged in wastage. He engaged in profligacy by renting private jets and what have you. That is okay. And I asked him that you are going to be Ghana's foreign affairs minister. You would be traveling not less than 200 times in the next 4 years. So there's an opportunity to save the people of Ghana some amount of money. And that opportunity, I demonstrated to him that if you want to use first class for your trip in New York, you'll be paying about 250,000 Ghana cedis. If you want to use business class, you pay about 140,000. Now, can you save the people of Ghana some money by joining economy class? Because you have said, or you have painted to the people of Ghana, that when our jet, the presidential jet, was not serviceable, it was wrong for the president to have used a presidential jet. So the argument is that had it been you, or if you were the president, or John Mahama was the president, he would not have rented the presidential jet. So why is it that you cannot answer to me, or you cannot give me a befitting answer where you indicate to me that I am going to use this opportunity to save the people of Ghana some money? Because 27,000 Ghana cedis for a round trip to New York, as compared to 140,000 Ghana cedis, is huge money. That night, the night that he was vetted, I have the manifest, he was on business class to the United Kingdom.
And to you, that's a deal breaker.
So I'm just saying, he who comes with what?
Who calls for equity?
Who calls for equity must come with what?
Clean hands. All right.
So on what basis do you now join a business class to UK when you could have used an economy class ticket to save the people of Ghana over 100,000 Ghana cedis for just one trip?
Vincent Esefua, Member of Parliament for Old Trafford. Back to you in the studio, Lily.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim Alassane. That's our Parliamentary Affairs correspondent, Ibrahim Alassane.